What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Teed Up. I'm your host, Pierre, Pee Wee the Plug, Andreessen. This episode is a little different. We postponed it because we love y'all so much. It didn't make sense to give y'all a Game 6 preview when there was a potential situation like tonight where we have a Game 7 on the line. It is officially at this time about 10:30. Me and my guy Christian here going to talk about Game 6, some things to look forward to in Game 7. The excitement to have a Game 7 in the NBA Finals, especially NBA Finals like this, where I think a lot of people expected things to go extremely differently. I'll admit, I've said it a bunch of times, documented on ESPN, on our podcast. I did think this was going to be a short series, not because I wanted to disrespect the Pacers or discredit them, but the OKC Thunder have been one of those teams that have just dominated the entire NBA over the course of the regular season, the playoffs. I do believe teams that defend the way they do normally are just going to be dominant. And the Pacers, again, and I said this to the guys, Christian, I'll give you a chance to chime in. Where do you fall on that? And I know you're supposed to ask me questions and whatever. But like when you're watching and you're trying to assess the series, do you feel like you slight the Pacers, or do you just respect OKC so much? Because I think a lot of us thought it would be like 5 games or so. Nobody expected 7 games.
I mean, I think OKC is now like 5-5 on the road in the playoffs or something like that, right? Like they haven't gone on the road and always been the dominant team that they were in the regular season and that they are at home. It's just interesting when I watch these two teams play. Like you're so impressed by Shea getting to his spots and scoring, what Chet's done and what J-Dub's done, but the Pacers just as a cohesive unit in the way that ball moves around and the way that everything changes when TJ, who I know you'll probably have a lot to say on here later. I feel like it's like the Pacers need to play really, really well to like keep up. You know what I'm saying? Like it's obvious like that the Thunder are the quote better team, but here we are going to a Game 7. The Pacers were up 30 in this game. Like if there was a blowout in this game, I would have thought it was the Thunder, considering Halliburton's status and considering what we've seen in games 4 and 5. So
Yeah, it's just for me, I love it because obviously it's good basketball. I love unpredictability. I think that's why me and you love college basketball so much. Any given night, you turn on a college basketball game, and the number one team in the nation or the country could lose to a team in their conference that's been at the bottom of the conference. And I feel like this series has kind of been that way. Again, it makes you kind of change the way we assess things. It's so easy to gloss over everything because it's the OKC and the defense has been so incredible and they have the MVP and the Pacers are a 5th seed and they've had to have all of these things go right. And I think I love that. I think next year when we go through the regular season and we head into the playoffs, a lot of the things that we've kind of gotten used to being able to cross out and say this is why this team will win. I don't think you'll be able to have that anymore. I don't think you can just reference and say, man, they had a top 5 defense and a top 5 offense, so they're going to win the series. Indiana is showing you, like, you get hot at the right time, like college basketball, you are able to game plan or, have certain matchups or play to your style, and you'll have, a situation where you can beat anybody. And that's probably my favorite part about this. As far as the game, I was extremely, extremely on edge to see how the Pacers would start. And when OKC came out of the gates, I think it was a 10-2 start. It was almost like okay, kind of here we go. And to see them fight back and to see them ultimately take control of the first quarter was extremely impressive. And I think that first quarter kind of shows why they are where they are, because you had certain stretches where I think Nembhard scored like 8 straight at one point. I think another part of this game, Nesmith, maybe in the second quarter, not necessarily the first, scored like 9 straight. He had 2 back-to-back threes and maybe got like a layup, and then he got fouled and made one. You had the stretches with Halliburton. You had the stretches with McConnell. Obi Toppin came off the bench and instantly got to it. So I just love a great team where everybody is able to pitch in. Sometimes I think that can be their biggest flaw as well. There are times where you do need that one guy, like Shea showed us in what was that, game 4 or game 3 in Indiana, where Shea kind of took over down the stretch in that fourth quarter. Sometimes you need that. But for them to just fight back, after not necessarily having a great start and taking over. It was incredible. The second quarter, though, the second quarter is where I really want to spend a lot of the time because I think to me that is the defining quarter of this game. What was it, 36-17 throughout the quarter? Um, to go an entire quarter, Christian, without an assist at any level, to me is unheard of, but especially the professional level. And another thing that I realized, and I tweeted this because I didn't see anybody else say anything about it, but I was doing my casual gloss over as we went into the half. Nobody else scored in the second quarter but J-Dub and Shea. They're the only two guys that scored in the entire quarter. I know sometimes you have a duo or a player who scores all of the field goals, but you'll still have somebody else make a couple of free throws here and there. They legitimately scored every single point of that 17-point second quarter. And I think that's going to be a thing that they're going to have to figure out going forward. I've said it on Numbers on the Board. I may have said it here on my YouTube channel. Regardless if they win a championship or not, the offense has too many of these type of moments where it gets very stagnant, it gets very ugly, and it turns into like your world, my world, and it does not look like a team that won 68 games. I was watching the second quarter, and I was at a disbelief of like how much nobody else could do anything. At this point in the game, I think Chet hadn't made a field goal. He was like 0 of 6, and he really, really struggled. I'm interested to know, again, I don't want to put you on the spot too much. What are your thoughts on Chet? Really quick.
I
He's
mean,
obviously good, but like, you know.
well, to me, he's the when you talk about when the offense can look stagnant, and it's kind of when you say your world, my world of Shea and Jada. When it's those two with Chet and then like a Dort and a Caruso or a Dort and a Hartenstein, like or Hartenstein, right? I always
Yeah,
forget.
Arnstein.
Um, it's like Dort and Caruso can pass it, but like they're not creating anything.
Mm-hmm.
And Dort's rainbow ass three, like I know it will go in when he's open, but like it just like he airballed on bad. So like, you don't want Dort taking anything that's not wide open. I feel like so it's like it is all on them, unless of course Chet is playing at a really high level. And like I think Miles Turner has struggled at offensively at times this series, but defensively I feel like he's done a pretty good job on Chet. And like when Chet doesn't score and he's not creating, then like it is so consolidated, and that's when it is a lot of just Shea and J Dub. And obviously they're so good at getting to the rim and finishing, but like that's why they got one more 3-pointer made from their starters tonight. And what if I told you AJ Mitchell had the same amount of assists as all the starters combined tonight? Like it's crazy what happened. Like 8 turnovers for Shea. I don't think he had more than 5 like in another game this playoffs.
8 turnovers for Shea. That was another big thing for me, and I talked about it on a linear show. And I remember Kenny being like, "Is it that simple?" And it's never just a simple thing, right? Like this is a very high IQ game. Two great teams. Rick Carlisle has coached his tail off the entire playoffs. Probably the best coaching display I've seen in a very long time as far as getting the most out of your group, game planning against all of these different teams. They have had an insane run, right? I mean, I know the Bucks weren't 100% healthy, but Greek Freak is still just a guy that I don't think anybody wants to see in 7 games, especially a team that isn't like solidified defensively, an offensive team. Um, then you go against the Cavaliers, who were one of the most surprising teams in the NBA, and they were able to hold their own there and prevail. You go against the Knicks team, who had just beat the Boston Celtics, a team that a lot of us thought had a high chance of going back to back. And then you go through all of that for everybody to be like, well, it's a 68-win team that you're probably going to lose to, and Rick Carlisle has figured out a way to get the most out of this group and this series. The second quarter, yeah. I want to say that Miles Turner and Chet are like X factors to me. It's kind of hard to drive that point home though, because you have TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin performing like this for the Pacers. And then on the opposite side, I feel like some of the better wins for OKC in the series is the Alex Caruso games, the Aaron Wiggins games. So it's like, I guess the bench and the 6 and 7 guys are the X factors. But I do think Chet and Miles Turner are kind of two guys that hold a lot of weight in the series because, like you said, when the theory is both of these guys can provide the rim protection and the shot blocking, But then on offense, they're supposed to be able to be two jumbo knockdown 3-point shooters who allow both of those offensive engines to have space and avenues to be able to score or create scoring opportunities in the perimeter by making the defenses collapse. And both of them just cannot consistently make outside shots. I do love, though, the aggression that Miles Turner came out with. Like, that's one of the first notes I wrote right here. Like, Miles Turner aggression early. Was not making shots, but he was taking them. He was aggressive. He had a couple plays where he tried to get downhill. And then again, like you said, he makes Chet look bad. I think Chet is a very good player. He's still very young. But when we talk about these skinny fives, fours, you know, the Porzingises, the Chets now, all of these guys, Wemby has to put on weight and everything. When that shot is not falling, it looks extremely bad. And I mean, Miles Turner is not like he's some physical specimen in the paint either. You know what I mean? Like, he's long and he blocks shots, but he makes Chet look extremely weak. And a lot of guys are allowing Chet to get downhill and they're bumping him offline, and he can't finish at the rim with a certain amount of contact. He did have the good spin move early in the game that was really, really nice on Miles Turner, but I think allowing him to have his water kind of turned off is the phrase I use, has made it hard for Shea and has made it hard for J-Dub because they're kind of living with the idea of recovering back on Chet. I love that too. I think one of the first possessions after Hardenstein scored the first 2 points, the next few possessions with the pick and roll, Miles Turner is meeting Shea there, and he's allowing Neesmith and Nembhard to recover and then getting back to Chet. I think early on uh, the shooting threat of Chet didn't allow you to feel that comfortable. But now it's a lot of show, recover, and we'll get back to Chet when we get to him. And I think that just that simple thing allows your defense to be a little bit more better. And you saw a lot early in this game. Shea turned the ball over. I think he had maybe 3 or 4 turnovers to my memory in that first quarter. And like you said, overall, he had 8. Him and J-Dub combined, you have 11 turnovers. 11 turnovers between your two best players. And we saw what the Pacers were able to do. The Pacers are a team that's going to score and play fast when you make a basket. But when you're turning it over, they're going to be as dangerous as anybody. They score, 19 points off of 21 turnovers. I think that is a recipe for success for them. And that's been my main thing. Limit your turnovers. They went an entire first quarter without committing one turnover. I think that is something that should get a lot of praise because that is a steep mountain to climb. It's one thing to have your turnovers in check and to protect the basketball, but to be able to go an entire opening quarter against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who has turned over every team in these playoffs, I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. The second quarter was it, though. TJ McConnell was big time. The inbound steals, the energy, the ability to get it. He's so intriguing to me because when you talk about being surgical, you talk about 2 feet in the paint, we automatically think about like the Ja Morant type of guards, the athletic, fast, crafty guards. TJ McConnell is crafty in his own right, but he doesn't have some insane burst. He doesn't have some quote unquote bag that Twitter would would refer to, but he's very precise. He's very smart, and he does not allow anybody to stop him from getting where he wants to get to. If I was a coach in a middle school, high school type system, I would show a lot of TJ McConnell.
When you say he doesn't have a bag, isn't it in his bag the get 2 feet in the right around the rim, like 6 feet from the rim, and be strong and hit that fader? Like, that is that not bag work? Do you
Yeah,
like
it's bag work in an offensive like package way. When I refer to bag,
just me
it
handles?
was more in the handle because when you think of certain guards who are going to penetrate, you think of the Ja Morants, you think of explosive guards who are either fast or the handle is so crazy that nobody can stay in front of them. But I think TJ McConnell, it's more impressive because he doesn't have those things, right? And it kind of makes you look at a lot of other players and say, what's your excuse? Like, what's your excuse? So when you see certain guys that can't turn the corner, what's your excuse? You know what I mean? So I just love the energy that he brings in. I'm a sucker for backup point guards. I think backup point guards are one of the most underrated instrumental things to all successful teams that we've seen in the history of NBA. Having a backup point guard who can either come in and run that first unit or come in and be a spark, set a tone, guard 94 feet. Backup point guards are like, they're a godsend, and you really need them. And I think that's the one thing that OKC is really missing. Cason Wallace is still early in his career, but it feels like he's more of a 3-and-D point versus like a guard. And I can't wait to see how they're going to address that, because you can tell the difference when Shea leaves the game. And even sometimes with Shea on the floor, it feels like they could just use their own version of TJ McConnell to kind of settle things down, maybe allow Shea to comfortably play off the ball, and allow their offense to have a few different more looks than the predictability that they're giving us. And I don't know, man. I just can't wait to see what this game 7 looks like, because TJ McConnell is the type of guy I want to have in a game 7. I'm not going to underestimate OKC. They're going to be at home. They've been phenomenal at home, especially in this series outside of the game 1. They have the MVP. They have a guy who just scored 40. They have the defense that they're going to be able to rely on. But TJ McConnell, I mean, when you watch this game, he had 12 points on 12 shots, 50% from the field. He didn't take any threes. So you can't force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. For the most part, when he's taken the threes in this series, when they've given him the shot, he's made it. He's been able to take his time and step up and make the shot. He had 9 rebounds. Christian. He had 9 rebounds. He had 9. I got the box score in front of me. I always, after the game, I go to the game book. I just want to make sure, because I love to be factual when I speak. That is more rebounds than Chet. That is more rebounds than Miles Turner. I think, yeah, he out-rebounded. No, they out-rebounded him by 1. Chet and Miles Turner combined had 10 rebounds in this game. TJ McConnell had 9. He had 6 assists and 4 steals. That's a guy who wants to win. I saw him on a loose ball. I saw him get an offensive rebound over Isaiah Hartenstein in his game. I want him in a game 7. So I'm loving everything that he's given us. Obi Toppin, like I said, he came out of the gate super aggressive, letting it fly. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I still like OKC. I'm obviously rooting for the Pacers, but it was so many dry spells. I mean, I kept looking up 4-minute stretch without a basket. They start the third quarter with a 5-minute stretch without a basket. In the second quarter, there were multiple stretches with no points. It just looked worse. I'll say that was probably the worst quarter I've seen of OKC in the last 2 years. Wow. And I'll let an OKC fan who's watched every game correct me if I'm wrong. But for me and what I've seen, I don't think I've seen them play that bad in a quarter.
Let me ask you this about TJ. He has been just so, first of all, actually, he missed those first 2 free throws right when he came in. Yeah. And for him to just respond this way just also shows who he is, like second leading rebounder in the game. He's been consistently effective throughout this whole series, like so effective to the point where my question to you is, does OKC, everyone stays home kind of when he's one-on-one, like he's kind of given the opportunity to play one-on-one, and he keeps eating at it in addition to everything else he brings to the table as a player. Like, if you're OKC, what can you do differently? Like, do you need to like stick Dort on him like the whole time? Like, do you have to go to an extreme of like, you never feel like you have to put your primary defense, even though his usage is so high when he's in? Like, what as OKC, if you're reviewing game 6 film, like, or maybe you burn this film and you've seen enough on Indy, but like, seriously, what do you do differently against TJ?
That's such a good question. And I think this is why it gets hard, especially like you said, you've kind of seen everything now. This is game 7. But when you're asking Dort, when you're asking Caruso, and even Cason Wallace to guard the way that they're guarding, it's hard to ask them to do it with the second unit too. Like, you want Dort to be able to get his rest when Halliburton goes to the bench. You know what I mean? Or like, that's supposed to be a time off when TJ McConnell's in the game. It's hard to say, because I feel like if you didn't switch the attention too much on TJ, now you're allowing Halliburton to maybe have a little bit more freedom. Maybe Pascal Siakam now has the game. It's kind of like the conversation I think we had about Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin in that game 1 hit 5 threes, and I remember D Mills being like, "Man, they're gonna have to do something about Toppin." And I just think in the NBA, you kind of have to just pick your poison and figure out what's more effective. I'll answer this way. If I was a part of the coaching staff, as good as TJ McConnell was, I think we played a little bit into his hands. If I'm OKC, I think if we play our brand of basketball, which we've played majority of this series, and we calm ourselves down, even if TJ McConnell has another game like this, we could still win. Because I mean, the inbound steal here, I think Doris Burke, even RJ, Richard Jefferson said it. Like, that's what he wants to do. Like they had like some idiotic things that I feel like when you allow that to happen, you play into him. He's an energy guy. He's feasting off of that home crowd. He's fiending to get one of those loose balls. When Isaiah Hartenstein, a 7-footer, allowed him to get an offensive rebound, that's what gets him going. Certain guys, they need to see the ball go through the hoop. Tyrese Halliburton, I think, gets going when he has a flashy pass to Siakam and he does the posterizing dunk on J-Dub. I think that makes Tyrese Halliburton feel good. I think TJ McConnell loves to make the extra hard-working winning play. I think Caruso plays the same way. Caruso is a guy that I think when you allow him to get a steal, when he's bumping or roughing up an offensive player, that gets his juices flowing, and now he's all locked in. So I think TJ McConnell, you can get away with him having a performance like the last game. TJ McConnell was phenomenal, and OKC pulled out. So I do understand the point that you're making, because it does feel like, man, like he is kind of winning, his minutes out there. He was a +10 in the 24 minutes he played. But at the same time, I do think you can still win games with him having these type of performances, because you just proved that in game 5. So I think a lot of the stuff when I look at OKC, they're self-inflicted. I mean, 21 turnovers. I don't know a team that can survive 21 turnovers. Like you said, for most of this game, they were 1 3-point shot was made, 1 of 16 for a long time. They ended up shooting 8 of 30, and a lot of these threes were the garbage time players. Jalen Williams from Arkansas hit 2 threes in the 12 minutes he played. Isaiah Joe, in the 14 minutes he played when the game was practically over, he hit 2 threes, and Ousmane Dieng hit a 3 in the 3 minutes he played. So that's 5 threes right there. So essentially you made 3 threes, because these guys didn't really play the real minutes. They didn't. You hit three threes over the course of an entire game, and your entire starting lineup made 1 3 out of 7, 12, 13. 1 of 13 from the starting lineup. Wiggins gave you 1 of 4. Yeah, you got to be. I know we know they're not a flame-throwing 3-point shooting team. This isn't the Boston Celtics, but dog, you cannot get 2 threes from your rotation. You can't go 2 of 20 in a playoff NBA Finals game and then also give 21 turnovers. You have more turnovers than assists. Pathetic.
Back to Chet, Pierre. He's shooting 35% from the field this series as a 7'1" guy. I know he's got guards as well. He's still 7'1", 11% from 3, and he's averaging less than an assist per game. And something I want to ask you about is, like, the easy answer, of course, is like obviously shoot the 3 better, put some strength on and finish around the rim better. But like, what about from like a creation standpoint? Because when you talk about the way that Shea and J-Dub go about their work, like, is there a world where, they in terms of like passes per game, like the Pacers are just a completely different basketball team? And I know that's a Rick Carlisle offense, but like, I guess for Chet to unlock, other than shooting the 3 better and putting strength on, like, does he need to be more of a playmaker? Or do you not even want him to be putting the ball on the floor, often and kind of being a more simple stretch rim running big?
That's a great question. In theory, for me, and again, I'm not going to act like I'm a guy that watched 82 OKC Thunder games. I think I admit it. They're a team that I wasn't able to watch as much as I would have wanted to in the regular season, because when you have a job to cover the NBA and you have to cover all 30 teams and you're turning on these games and OKC is winning by 26 in the second quarter, I'm probably going to go to the more entertaining game. Like, they handled their business so good that it faulted them for somebody like me, because if I have to watch them or this close game between these other 2 teams, I'm probably going to go watch the close game. So I want to put that out there. I think it's important to be honest and be transparent when speaking on these type of things. But for me, in theory, I would love to see Chet play a little bit off the elbows like Hartenstein. I think and this is just in theory, right? Like I don't have any stats or anything in front of me. You know, some people will probably hear this and pull up some stats or whatnot. If you have a lineup where Hartenstein is off the floor and you have Shea, J-Dub, Dort, and Caruso or Wiggins or whoever, somebody that can knock down shots, Chet being able to do dribble handoffs with somebody like Shea, who you're going to respect the gravity of him getting in and going downhill or going to his mid-range shot, I feel like that could open up a lot. And now Chet is either rolling hard for a lob, he's able to pop, maybe get a mismatch. And the fact that they're not doing it, I don't know if that's an indication to him and his ability to do that. I don't know if they just prefer him with the idea of him spacing the floor for Shea. I don't know, but I would love to see him be able to open up the playmaking just a little bit more if it's there. If it's not there, then you can't force it. You know, you don't want to take the ball out of your MVP hands if it's not going to be for something that's going to be legitimate. But I do think it's important to figure that out. And I think that's a great point that you're bringing up because we're seeing in these games, you just said he's shooting 11% in this series from three, and he's shooting 30-something% from the field, which means he's basically non-existent offensively. That's bad for them. That's bad for them. He has to find a way where he can be evolved and still be a threat. And if he's not going to be physically imposing enough to handle Miles Turner, then he's going to have a very uphill battle a lot in his career. You don't want to play him too much with Hartenstein because obviously when Chet is not making shots and you have Hartenstein out there, you got two non-perimeter threats that only makes it harder for guys to get downhill. And this is a team that relies on paint touches and points in the paint. So I don't know. They have to figure something out. This is a great long-term conversation, though, because if Chet is an idea player, it might get ugly for him. And what I mean by idea player is like we see certain versions of guys and they turn into the idea. It's kind of like Anthony Davis when he got to the Lakers. The idea of Anthony Davis being able to knock down shots still played in our mind. But then it's like, man, Anthony Davis just couldn't make jump shots. You know what I mean? He just wasn't, it wasn't the Pelicans Anthony Davis. And I think Chet is the same way. If we're going to look at Chet as a stretch five who doesn't really stretch, it's just it's an idea. This is the time where the stretch five has to be a stretch five. You can't be a stretch five who is shooting 11% in the NBA Finals. You just can't. You can't. This is when Porzingis like really was able to show himself in those few games he played with the Celtics. You know what I mean? By being a legitimate shooting threat who can knock it down off the catch, and you have to be accountable for him. Karl-Anthony Towns had a series like that in the playoffs where he wasn't making shots. That was against what? I think that was against, it may have been against Boston, where Cat only made like 2 threes or something for a long stretch. He's still very young. What is Chet? 23? 22?
23.
He has time to figure it out, but I'm interested to see the future of that because there are a lot of players who I think a lot of us hold on to as an idea without them kind of becoming that full-on player. And I also am curious, what is it going to look like for the Thunder financially? Are they going to want to commit the boatload of money with these type of performances in their mind? You know what I mean? If you win it, they kind of probably won't care, but it will be something that you have to think about because the second apron has become such this glorified thing that is haunting teams that I can't imagine them not kind of thinking about this. And at one point, I thought Chet was the second best player. I think that conversation is dead. I think J-Dub has kind of like taken off in that conversation.
I mean, Chet did shoot 38% from three during the regular season, but like it's hard not to ignore, you know, he didn't shoot well in the Denver series, shot 22% from deep in the Denver series. Like, does a guy like that, you know, yes, it's dope that he can like handle the ball and move the way he does at his size, but it's like, do you play more like a Derek Lively than you know what I'm saying? Like, can he match? Because obviously he's an elite shot blocker and rebounder. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's interesting to see moving forward. And then one other point you mentioned
would you call him an elite rebounder?
Elite might be strong. I mean, Hartenstein's their best rebounder, but he has been rebound this series.
Throughout the course of the playoffs, he is shooting 30% from 3 on 4 attempts. Last year playoffs, in 10 games, he shot 26% from 3.
Yeah, like that's a trend. It's not as easy in the playoffs. But the other thing I was going to say is Sam Presti's always got something up his sleeve, and you know what I think could be the sneaky thing up his sleeve next year is Nikola Topic being like a bigger factor than people expect. Like there were people who were saying he was like a top 5 player in the class,
Yes.
and we haven't seen him, and like he's a big guard and he's creative, and I think that could be fun.
The other thing, I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing is also like, so Chet is taking steps in the right direction in his career in rebounding. He rebounded eight rebounds per game his rookie year. He's at 8 rebounds his sophomore year this year, or I guess his third year, but you get the sophomore year of playing in 32 games. He also played next to Hartenstein, only 27 minutes per game because, again, this team handled business very early. But in the playoffs, same thing. His rebounds have gone up from his first playoff series run last year, where he averaged 7. Now he's up to about 9. He's playing a lot more minutes, played a lot more games. There is a world where he can take another step rebounding wise, but OKC also has enough assets to where if he's not going to be the stretch 5 and he's just an occasional guy who can knock down shots and maybe in the regular season he's going to shoot it better, they have enough assets to go and make another move where Cam Johnson could be a guy that you could put, you know what I mean? Trey Murphy. These are interesting things that I think about as well, too, with the future of OKC. Like, they are so set up good that, like, if Chet isn't the idea of what they thought they were going to get from an offensive standpoint, he won't be as expensive. And you have so many assets that you'll be able to address it. It will be nothing to say, okay, we'll move on from Hartenstein because he's become too expensive at $28.5 million. He served his purpose. Now let's make a pivot and go get somebody who can play next to Chet, still allow us to have spacing, even for when Chet maybe isn't knocking down a shot at the clip that we want or expect. So the rich get richer, man. It's just like the OKC they're set up good because it's like the alternative is we'll make a move, but there's also a world where Chet figures this out and we don't have to make a move. So it's in theory a win-win for them. You know what I mean? Like, shout out to Sam Presti, man. We don't really have to overthink it too much. It is an interesting conversation, though.
One other kind of macro point. When you look at, obviously, Shea is a tier above Haliburton being MVP in the level of production, but when you look at, I'm in draft mode also, right?
Okay.
Got that around the corner. Like, the Thunder are a defensive team, and they're able to be so great as a defensive team because they have such concentrated offensive talent, right? But like the Pacers are just, they got 10 guys and they share the ball and it's a different flavor, whether it's Haliburton in there or McConnell. Mathurin can go off, Topic can go off, Nesmith can go off, Nembhard can go off, Siakam can go off. Like, it's crazy how many different guys they have. It's like, do you think stylistically, smart teams around the league watching this finals, like, do you think more teams are going to be like, ooh, I want to build my team around a defensive team with potentially, even though Shea gets assists, a ball stopping kind of style of play, right? Or do I want to be this fun, share the ball, we got a ton of guys, and it could be anyone that pops. Like the Thunder, to win Game 7, you're going to need close to 55, 60 from Shea J-Dope, right? Like the Pacers, it could be anyone. Ben Mathurin had 2 points tonight. He had 27 the other. Like, Obi had 29. It's just so interesting, the contrasting styles of how these teams are built. The one similarity is that they're just both deep in terms of how many guys play. But I just don't know if you have any commentary on just the offense versus defense and the ball movement versus the heliocentric.
If I had to guess, I think a lot of teams would prefer to go to the defensive side. I think history leans to defense. I think defense is something that you can count on. And I do think there has been times where we've seen the Pacers run into the issue of needing somebody to rely on, and it's not there. And I think we've also seen the Thunder get bailed out by knowing that they have Shea and J-Dub. Um, Even the other past championship teams, like I think the Boston Celtics were really, really great, constructive, constructed. But I think being able to lean on a Tatum, being able to lean on Brown, and then having all these complementary players, um, is a great accessory to have, or like luxury to have, excuse me. But I think defensively switching everything, I think that was the more best trait about that team. Jokic, right? Like they Denver always had a guy that they could go to, that they can get a bucket. Even in these playoffs, I think the Nuggets played way better than anybody expected because they had this go-to guy. I do think that the Pacers allow teams to get creative, because I think there was a time where you couldn't imagine a team playing the way the Pacers do making it to the finals, right? Like I grew up on the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns. They were never a team that was like this, like in the NBA Finals. They had a couple chances. They got real close. You can say the Amari Stoudemire suspension and stuff of leaving the bench prohibited or whatnot. But it's always been defensive teams that got the job done for the most part. Like when you have a really good defense, you're probably going to be able to count on that more than an offense. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a team that you can count on the defense night in and night out, or would you rather have a team that you have to try to rely on a group effort to score consistently?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the Thunder is built is more sustainable. Like if we simulated these playoffs, by simulate, I mean if we legitimately played it out 100 times, like the Pacers hit their top 1% outcome, right? The
Yeah.
Thunder are making it to the finals, like over 50% of the times. I feel like, in
Here's what I will say to that though. The thing that I think is the best thing about the Pacers outside of those things, I really like Rick Carlisle is really coaching his ass off.
yeah,
He is really coaching his ass off, coming up with game plans. I think that's another conversation that could even be had where, like, to see a coach have a team that isn't as defensive for all of this time, but it's like, because I'm such a coach, because I'm such an amazing, great coach, I'm figuring out ways to be good enough. Because that's all you have to be, is good enough. You don't have to be the greatest defense of all time. You
right.
don't have to all of a sudden like stop everything OKC is doing. You just have to be good enough. And that's what the Pacers have done. And again, kind of like the TJ McConnell thing, what I think this does is I think it puts pressure on teams around the NBA. I think like you saw Tom Thibodeau get fired. I think other coaches around the NBA are going to get more pressure because it's like, what's your excuse?
Right.
What is your excuse of not taking all of the talent we have? We're spending all of this money. What's your excuse to not figure it out? You have to be able to figure something out, regardless of whatever your team is not. Whatever your team is, you might have a team that's not quote unquote offensive. Well, shit, you're gonna have to figure it out. You might have a team that isn't great defensively, but shit, you got to come up with something that just gives us a chance, because a lot of these organizations are scared of that second apron. And if they're going to play with that second apron, or if they're going to get close to it, they want results. And if you're not going to be able to do it as a coach, and you're not going to be able to figure out game plans and matchups, because it's all matchups. Basketball is a matchup game. Then yeah, I think a lot of coaches are gonna hit the road.
Can we talk about Andrew Nembhard too, as well, especially defensively? Like the fact that he's got the Canada relationship with Shea, I think is just really interesting from an emotional and psychological standpoint. But like, he's a second round pick, a 4-year player. I know the first pick is second round, but still a second round pick, 4-year player. No one projected him as a plus defender, and to see, you know, I don't know how much of this is the Pacers coaching staff for unlocking this, or if he's just got that dog in him, and he's familiar with Shea. But like the way he's competed defensively throughout these playoffs is so impressive to me. And I don't know if you have a comment on just that matchup, but also, defensive growth. Because in combine season, like I said, that's how I'm thinking. Like we do get obsessed with wingspans and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's real, like a Carter Bryant or a Cedric Howard. But like sometimes it's effort, it's smarts, it's feel, and I think a guy like that, you know, can even though Shea's gone his Like, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But what Nembhard's done has still been super impressive to me.
It goes back to like one of the conversations we had with Jacob, which that episode will be out Monday, our draft special, where it's like sometimes it's just really good and valuable to take that chance on a good basketball player, no matter how many negatives they may have in their scouting report or in their player profile. They don't have this, they don't have that. They may be undersized. But like good basketball players and knowledgeable high IQ basketball players, they have this advantage that the smarts, the IQ may allow them to figure something out that works for them. And I think that's my favorite thing about Andrew Nembhard is he's an intelligent basketball player. Me and you have seen him at the college level for years, and he played an entirely different role on both Florida and Gonzaga. And then he comes into the NBA and is playing an entirely different role and has still found a way to be valuable. And it just creates another conversation around the draft where like these 4-year, 5-year guys who have played a lot of basketball, who've played with a lot of different talent. I know not everybody is going to play with the amount of talent Nembhard has played because even before he got to college, he played at Mount Verde. So he's played. He has. But I think that goes into like again, some of what you just said. We get so enamored with shooting percentages and Bartovic profiles and measurements and what you ran, but there is like some cachet in the underlying story of like who people are and their path, and I think a lot of it makes sense when you look at how Andrew Nembhard has found a way to be valuable and reinvent himself at the NBA level on this particular team. It makes sense when you think about his path. He's played with amazing, great players. Throughout his career, he's had to figure out ways to be valuable, and he's done it time and time again. And that's why I was so high on him and felt like he, even as a second round pick now, I'd be lying if I say I thought he was going to be this good, this fast. But still, I felt that there was value. And I don't get why we don't think that way still. And when I say we, I mean like the NBA decision makers, because we still draft so much for upside and potential, and that potential word is like the end all be all. You know what I'm saying? And it's nothing wrong with that, and I get it when the first 14 picks and you have a lottery pick and you're trying to take this swing to save your franchise or to save your job. But like, how many times are we going to see these Andrew Nembhard, Draymond Green guys who played at good programs for good coaches on good teams, play with good players,
Brunson's
know the
most,
game?
isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like, how many times do we have to see this? And I'm sure there's more examples than what I'm naming off the top of my brain. You probably can think of some. But it's like, how many times we have to see this before somebody is like, you know what? I'm going to take one of those guys with my 19th pick. And like, I'm not going to allow him to fall. And then they fall to great teams. They all fall to these teams that are like, because the good teams are kind of picking towards the back end. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It creates another good conversation around the draft where I get people have jobs to do and I get upside and potential. It's so intriguing. Me and you talk about guys that have potential. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's always these guys that are like, it's not even surprising. I don't think Andrew Nembhard's success surprises you, Christian. I don't think the flashes Jamal Shedd showed for the Toronto Raptors surprised you. You know what I mean? I think some of those things are laying right there in plain sight, and it's crazy. The only guys that I can say like came out of nowhere, Nikola Jokic, right? Like, I'm sure Nikola Jokic was good and people liked him, but like a second round MVP, I'm not telling teams that, man, you should have noticed that he was an MVP like right before your eyes. But I think there is a few more examples where it's a lesser degree, but just like a high quality role player that can play a part on a good team. I think a lot of those guys just sit in the draft, and it blows my mind how many teams take a swing for like a 6'8" athletic guy who just kind of bottoms out. No IQ, no feel. You're banking on all of this exterior shit to go right versus a guy right here who has showed you. So I don't know, man. The rich are going to continue to get richer if guys don't learn how to draft. Even the AJ Mitchell. How does AJ Mitchell fall to the Thunder? How? How? I don't know, man. I have no idea.
Transitioning, one last thing before we get out of here. Big trade, obviously, with Desmond Bane headed to Orlando for 4 picks. I saw a clip of him saying that him and his agent were talking like this is the perfect fit. He seems really excited. What are your thoughts on this move and also just from a zoomed out perspective, another trade where we're seeing a lot of first round picks, being flung around and what does that mean for the future? And more moves are on the way.
I love Desmond Bane, one of my favorite shooting guards in the league. So I'm very happy for him and his opportunity. I think he's done a really good job of growing and getting better with his opportunities in Memphis. John Morant missed a lot of time with his injury, then the suspension, and I think Desmond Bane really showed a lot of growth. Another guy, by the way, after the conversation we just had, that fell. This is a guy that was taken at 30. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think this is a good move. What I love about it, though, from both sides, I love when a team says, you know what, we notice what we have, we believe in what we have, and we're gonna put our money where our mouth is. We're going to allow the actions to speak louder than words. Instead of doing a press conference and telling you how much we believe in Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner, we're going to make a move to announce how much we believe in them. This move says to me, we believe in the young stars that we have wholeheartedly. We believe that we have what it takes and that these guys are going to continue to get better and be huge players in the NBA. Y'all think y'all saw what Paolo Banchero can do? Y'all haven't seen enough. He has another gear he can take. Franz Wagner, he has some struggles throughout these playoffs the last couple of years. We believe that that is not going to be a consistent thing with him. And they went out, they invested. This is an investment. And then you also got rid of the KCP contract, which I feel like sucks a little bit because he was like this match made in heaven. You can't blame the Magic for the acquisition in the offseason and giving him the money because it felt like this was a perfect place for him to be. And it just didn't pan out. But this is also great GMing. You don't have to sit and allow that move to kick you in your ass, for years. You pivoted and got a Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane is not going to have no type of year that KCP had. Desmond Bane is legit. And then on the other side, the Memphis Grizzlies. I love self-awareness. We have a team that is not getting to the level that we want. We're not getting the success and we're not reaching our fullest potential. We love Ja, we love Jaren, we love Bane, but in order for us to take that step forward, we have to sacrifice one of these things. And Desmond Bane happened to be the odd man out, but you get 4 first-round picks, you get a swap. That's a lot. That's going to help the Memphis Grizzlies in the long term. Sometimes you got to take a step back to take 10 steps forward. And I think that was great because what do you really think that the Grizzlies next year, if they didn't make this move, was going to do something out of the world? Because I don't. You know what I
No,
mean?
but they were like a top 3 seed for a good portion of the season behind Houston.
Yeah, they were.
That's the one thing in my head, but
They did that before and it didn't really turn out to anything. You know what I mean? I think we talked about it on the podcast. They had one playoff series win. They beat the young young Minnesota Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards. That's really been it. I mean, they've been second in the Western Conference before. They've looked like they were on their way, and it hasn't materialized. And I felt something in my spirit when Taylor Jenkins got fired. I'm like, unless this team goes on some Cinderella run in the playoffs, something big is going to happen. And it felt like Desmond Bane, but then I kept seeing the Ja rumors, and I'm like, damn, maybe it's gonna be Ja. Like maybe Ja is really gonna get traded. And then the news came. So I like it for both sides. Time will tell who is the ultimate winner. But I do think that this is a good trade for both sides. And I just love when teams are aware, and I love when teams try to take a chance. And this is a good chance. And I think it shows what the offseason is going to look like. I also want to say this before we leave. A move like this also shows the amount of bullshit that goes on in our league, in my opinion, especially like online. Every day you wake up and there's like 8 or 9 or 10 new reports about a bunch of shit that ain't happening. Like literally, like they told us last week that Kevin Durant will be traded by the weekend. We're heading into a whole new weekend and there's nothing has changed. Right. But then you have a trade like Desmond Bane. We got no report for him. It just fell from the sky. So I'm almost at a point where like, We're going to talk about rumors on this show. It's a part of it. But I'm taking everything with a grain of salt. Everybody has a source. Everybody's close to the situation. Everybody has this or that. I'm not really buying into too much of the shit. It almost goes to the Ace Bailey thing where, like, they were telling us that Ace Bailey was going to be falling way before this came out. Now his agent is doing this. Now Sharif Cooper's dad is asking for money to be on camera. It's all of this bullshit. You don't know if it's real, if it's smoke. Well, obviously, Sharif Cooper is actually his representation. That's actually real. They actually did cancel the workout with the 76ers. But it's just so much going on that it just be a lot. And I just be like, you know what? Let's just get to the draft. Let's see where Ace Bailey is actually going to go. And let's see what he actually turns into. Let's actually wait and see when Kevin Durant is going to be traded instead of giving me 15 reports every day and nothing happens. It kind of gets exhausting. And I feel bad for the NBA fans because when you see these reports, it gets you excited, but then nothing comes about. That's why I've been telling everybody on Numbers on the Board, like, I don't know if I'm getting my hopes up for draft night trades because they've been hyping this shit up for years and we never get anything super crazy. So it's like, I don't know. I just can't wait for the draft to be over, though. I think once the draft happens, the dominoes will fall because a lot of the rumors are, is Brooklyn trading up for Ace Bailey? Is Philly trading down? Teams are trying to trade with the Spurs to get two. Once the draft is done, that avenue of draft night trades and draft picks being traded is removed, and I think this show will start. And when I say this show, I mean the offseason. So, yeah, man. I know you're not the biggest Ace Bailey hater. You're not the biggest Ace Bailey lover. What are your thoughts when you see like a player do this type of stuff, as far like this has nothing to do with his talent or his future, but just when you see like a guy not working out for a team, how do you take that? Is that like a thing that would make you stay away from a prospect?
I've read some stuff today from people I respect, including our guy Raphael, and it seems like to either one of two things is happening here. One, he's either getting some really bad advice and Cooper's dad is making some mistakes with the way they're handling this, or two, they're working on a higher level and they got a plan to get him somewhere and it's gonna work, you know? And like I get it from the standpoint of look at Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd this year of guys that from a confidence perspective, and he's Raphael wrote this, like confidence is so big in basketball, and if you're not seeing the court, and if you think Ace Bailey can be a all NBA guy in the next 3-4 years, which he thinks and his team thinks, I get trying to do everything in your power to get into a situation that you want to. But if they're not doing that carefully, I'm not saying it's going to be Cam Whitmore, but some crazy thing could happen. And you don't, it just, if you're going into it saying you're a top 3 player in the class and you don't work out for team number 3, and I heard something that said he didn't want to go to Charlotte either, like, what are you doing? I don't know. It's interesting, but I hope for his sake as an 18-year-old kid that this isn't, him getting bad advice from people taking advantage of him or not knowing what's best for him.
Yeah. I think I fall almost like literally where you fall. If you have a plan, I think it's important to have a plan, especially in the NBA. I'm big on that confidence thing. I've said it. I'm going to continue to say it for the rest of my career. Talent is important, but I think where you go and where you end up is almost just as, if not, is more important than the talent. If you have all the talent in the world, but you go to an organization that has no player development, that doesn't know what to do with your talent, that doesn't put you in a proper position, all that talent won't matter. If you are a guy that isn't that talented and you fall into the perfect situation or the perfect organization that knows what they're doing, you could turn into a Hall of Famer. I said that today on my stream on Twitch because somebody was asking me about it. And you know the example I was able to give, like off the top of my brain, that I kind of love now that I say that? Look at a guy like Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins had all of the talent in the world. All of the talent. When we look at them as prospects, Andrew Wiggins is way more talented than Draymond Green as prospects coming into the NBA. But Draymond Green went to a situation that was perfect for him. As least talented as he is the one that's going to be a Hall of Famer. But if we rewind it 10 years ago and we talked about them as prospects, everybody would have put their money on Andrew Wiggins to be the Hall of Famer. But it showed those two players, as different as they are, and I'm glad that they were able to win one together. I don't want to pit anybody against each other, but I think that example shows how significant fit and environment is over the talent. Andrew Wiggins is a guy that was on Slam magazines as a high school player. They were calling him the most hyped prospect since LeBron James. And Draymond Green is a guy that went in the second round, a guy who was a chubby tweener who nobody knew what to do with, and now he's the one that's going to be a Hall of Famer, no doubt, because he went to a place that was perfect for him, that knew what to do with his skill set, and utilized him to reach his fullest potential. As a prospect, that's all you should want. If I have a son who is lucky enough to be a high level player, or a high level high school player, a college player, or NBA player, I'm going to always tell my child, go to the place that you feel is going to be able to put you in position to reach your fullest potential. That's all you want. And I think the Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepherd points were incredible. I do think it's a little different. They're guards. I'm not always against guards having that quarterback type of year where you sit and you learn. I think Reed Shepherd is in a really good situation. I know you always want to play, but I think Houston is a really nice place. I think as far as talent, I think you're getting well coached by Ime, and I think Fred VanVleet is a good vet to have. I can't speak on that for Rob Dillingham because I just don't know what that situation is like. But I think there is some benefits from a rookie point guard to slowly come up. The point guard position is the hardest one to come into the NBA and do your thing, and we see a lot of god awful rookie performances from point guards. Like they were saying Darius Garland was the worst player in the entire NBA after his rookie year, and now he's a guy that's a multi-time All-Star. So you know what I mean? That all of that though is my belief on Cam Reddish. I wholeheartedly believe now Cam Reddish also is responsible. You know, he has to play better, have a little bit better motor. But I do think the start of Cam Reddish's career is what kind of affected the trajectory, because he went to an Atlanta team that put him kind of in the box. He went there with a DeAndre Hunter who was picked higher than him. There was already, you know, a guy like Trae Young who kind of demanded the ball so much. I really do think where you go shapes you. You know what I'm saying? I think we talk about Cam Reddish. I think he's a different player and has a different career path. If Cam Reddish went to an opportunity like the RJ Barrett with the Knicks, right, where there was no foundation, there was no number one option yet, and he was able to kind of get reps early to really figure out what type of player he was, I think he would have been. I think we talk about him differently. That's just what I think. I could be totally wrong. There could be people that have different opinions. I'm not really against it. It's just a thought. We will never know. It's just a thought. But I do believe where you go is important. Michael Beasley is one of my favorite players ever. I think Michael Beasley is different if he doesn't go to Miami, South Beach as an 18-year-old millionaire. I always tell people it's not a coincidence that if you look up Michael Beasley's numbers, his best numbers of his career is where? In fucking Minnesota on the Timberwolves. I don't think that that's a coincidence. There's nothing to do in Minnesota compared to Miami, South Beach. Those are two places I've personally been. It's two different worlds. But yeah.
Here's the impossible thing. Like when you bring up an example like Draymond, obviously playing with Steph Curry allowed him to be attached to this championship career, and he was a championship player. And
yes.
But here's the thing. There's 30 different locations. In how many of the 30 slots does Draymond end up winning a championship? You know, it's the same thing like another guy who I think when you talk about a perfect situation, Christian Brown. Christian Brown gets drafted by the Nuggets, wins a championship. Now he might get he averaged 15 points a game, maybe gets paid. He hit the lottery in terms of where he landed. And it's unknown, of course, what his career would have been if he did get drafted by anyone else. That's just the way reality works. But it's just so interesting of, it does decide everything, and there's just no way to ever know what it would have been like if something else happened. The draft night is just so important.
But the one thing I will say about guys like Brown, Draymond, Jalen Brunson, when you're Fred VanVleet, when you have a little bit more power as those second round picks. Like Fred VanVleet and his agent opted, hey, I'm good. I'm not work. I don't draft
Austin
me.
Reeves too.
Austin, boom, yeah, don't draft me. I'm a change. Um, I'm gonna figure out my own situation. I'm gonna figure some things out. Um, and I kind of think that they're aware of the situations they're going to be in. But that's why I say the NBA kind of gives them the underhand throw for the home run because the bad teams are going to pick early. They don't want them. The good teams are going to be at the end of the draft and they're going to say, we have a superstar. We have a co-star. So if I'm the Nuggets, I don't need anybody that's going to come in and try to take the ball out of Jamal Murray or Jokic's hand. Not a rookie. I don't need that. So what? Boom. Oh, Brown. This kid is a winner. He's older. Can play good in transition. He's willing to guard.
Perfect.
Perfect. You know what I mean? Jalen Brunson. Like he's a winner. He's high IQ. He can score off the dribble. He's played with other guys. Playing a pick and roll. Perfect. Draymond Green, Swiss Army knife guy, come from winning, played a bunch of years, can play right away. Perfect. Like I get what you're saying because it is true. Like it's literally like God's plan that Draymond went to the Warriors. It's literally the best fit. Draymond does not have the same career if he plays for the fucking Pistons. Is that it's no disrespect, but it's the truth. But at the same time, it's like they kind of they kind of set themselves up perfectly for it, and I think the other GMs allow it. You know what I'm saying? I kind of do think that there is a world where some of those guys, maybe not Draymond Green to a degree, because he's used his path to be a Hall of Famer, so we'll exclude him. But like when I watch Jalen Brunson, it's like, bro, Jalen Brunson was gonna be Jalen Brunson one way or another. Now with the Knicks, he's able to maximize it to all NBA level, but he was going to be an effective NBA player. He was going to be successful. When I look at some of the things Christian Brown does, especially with the Nuggets, he seems like a guy that was going to figure out a way to be successful. And I think it's not a coincidence that a lot of these guys check the same boxes, man. They come from winning, good programs, play with other good basketball players. What was Josh Hart? Josh Hart, I think, was a late first round, like
He was 30th, I think, as well.
30th. Okay. It, I'm telling you, if me and you ran our own team, Christian, and we didn't have and we had multiple draft picks, like for instance, I think the Nets have 4 first round picks. With that 8th pick, you take your upside. But they have 2 picks in the 20s. Those
Don't
2
say that.
picks in the 20s, go and find that 4-year guy. Go find that, if you can get Walter Clayton, take a chance. You know what I mean? Like, go get that guy that's been through some shit. You gotta have some guys that are like that because the everybody's analytical. The data and the information and the quote unquote analytics say that those guys, they're effective in the NBA. They're effective.
I'm happy you said Walter Clayton's name. This is the last thing I want to end on because he's the guy, to me, as a college hoops guy, that I'm most excited to see where he goes because, you know, as a guy who Shabazz Napier was like my favorite guy. You know what I'm saying? When I see a Shabazz Napier, you see a Jalen Brunson of a point guard win the title, and where Shabazz got picked and Brunson left. Where does Walter Clayton fall on the Shabazz Napier to Jalen Brunson scale? Like, I'm excited to see, and I think his picking spot does matter. Is he a guy who does he go to a really good team? Is he somewhere like Boston? I don't know. That was a good example because of Pritchard, but like where he
What
can
about
come be a
this?
spark plug off the bench, or does he have a path to like, you know what I'm saying? I think his location is really interesting to me.
How would you feel? Because there's 2 guys that I believe that are like match made in heavens for one spot. Now, Jace Richardson was the first match made in heaven for this team, but they just did the trade, so they no longer have that pick. Like I looked at Orlando in 16, and it's like if depending on how the draft falls, Jace Richardson at 16 would be like, he feels perfect for them. But now they got Desmond Bane at 25. Walter Clayton to the Orlando Magic, I kind of like, because you got Desmond Bane, but one player doesn't fix the offensive 3-point shooting question marks that you have. Walter Clayton is going to be ready to play immediately at day one. He should be available at 25 as far as I know.
We'll see.
He can play with other good players. He has cojones. He's winning, and he's grinded. So the challenges of being a rookie in the NBA on a playoff team, it won't confidence. It won't straddle him. It won't make him like crumble. It it's hard to know about that when you have an 18-year-old who was hand given everything his freshman year, and everybody kissed his ass. He ain't never had to really work through adversity. So the NBA grind, especially going to a playoff team, is going to be tough. I don't know how Will Riley will react to getting benched or not playing in the first 27 games of the season. I don't know, because we haven't really seen him go through that. But Iona, Florida, tough coaching, Patino, you know what I mean? Like, championship run. He hit big shots during his run. A lot of those games, Florida was down 6, and he would hit a big ass 3. Like, I want that if I'm a Magic team that is looking to be a playoff team, and I want somebody to impact our team immediately at the guard position. Like, his DNA seems like he's going to be another one of those guys. I think Peyton Pritchard showed that, like, Peyton Pritchard got guts. Peyton Pritchard was requesting a trade when they went to the NBA Finals. Not when they won, but when they went to the NBA Finals that first year against the Warriors. Peyton Pritchard, like, man, I'm trying to play. I'm good. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck if I want to play. I'm on a championship team. That ain't an excuse for me to not be playing. I need to be on the floor. And look, he was right. So I would love to see Walter Clayton go to a Orlando Magic team for those purposes. But I also wouldn't be mad at seeing Walter Clayton go to a Nets, and just being able to have full reign, right? The Nets don't have anything concrete. They're just trying to figure it out now. And maybe he could go there and, like, go crazy. Maybe he goes to Phoenix with Devin Booker. You know what I mean? Maybe he does go to Boston, but I know they have Peyton Pritchard. But, like, maybe he goes to LA, learn from Harden. They got the 30th pick. Go play with the Clippers and learn from a Harden. Like, I think guys like him are playing with house money. They're playing with house money. The only thing that could be bad for a guy like Walter Clayton or the Jalen Brunsons and these guys that played 3 or 4 years is if a team just goes too high. If a team's like, you know what, fuck it, 9th pick overall, we're going to take Walter Clayton, because then the expectation is just. But I think there are some spots for Walter Clayton, man. I'm excited. I'm so excited for this draft. I'm so excited, man. That's another great addition to Tee It Up. Shout out to my guy Christian for stepping up and being a co-host / producer in this episode. Want to remind y'all before we end this, though, we do have a really big draft special dropping on Monday, a couple days right before the draft. We went over as many, like, I don't think there's going to be another podcast that goes over that many prospects. Again, we're going to be sitting down with my guy Jacob Myers, aka League Him, 2 hours long. We got prospect deep dives. We got information that I don't think has ever been disclosed publicly. This is a guy that has really good relationships. He's traveling to the games. He's traveling to the pro workouts. He has relationships with the players. So we're going to get some exclusive news. We're going to get some good insight. And he also dropped some gems for a lot of y'all that are trying to get into the space and build your own, little brand, because he's done a really good job at League Him. So please gear up and get ready for that Monday drop. As always, we appreciate y'all, and we will see y'all in the next episode. Be safe, be healthy, and enjoy basketball. We out. Peace.